Hi all, this is Jan Almighty and welcome to this video. So in this video we are again talking about a game from Jose Raul Capablanca, and in this game he is playing against Akiba Rubinstein. So we are still at the San Sebastian tournament, and this is the last game that I will show you from this tournament where Capablanca played. So this is round 13, and up until this point Capablanca already made 6 wins, couple of draws, and he is comfortably in the lead. So yeah, he's playing against Rubinstein. Rubinstein, for those of you who don't know, is a very good player of that time, and a very strong player in general. He is a guy who is considered to be one of the top players who never became world champions. Actually, Rubinstein was a long time considered to be a successor to the throne, so becoming a world champion after Lasker, but unfortunately circumstances didn't allow that. So what actually happened is, as you maybe some of you know, in that era the thing is that the world champion can actually dictate the rules, what needs to be done in order to actually, yeah, who can challenge him, what the challenger needs to do, and stuff like that. So Lasker demanded really large sums of money, which Rubinstein didn't have. So for the most part, the match didn't happen because of that. But in the end, there was an arrangement of the match in 1914 in Vienna. But yeah, World War I happened, and the match had to be postponed. After that, the match really didn't happen or anything. There wasn't no yeah, we will continue where we left it. No, Capablanca managed to rise to high power, and in the end he challenged Lasker for a match where he won and became the third world champion. So a bit of a sad story for Rubinstein here, but nevertheless, he is considered to be one of the best players ever, and yeah, a very good endgame player. So this is a clash of really good endgame players, and this is also one of the reasons why I wanted to show you this game. So let's go into it. d4, d5, and now we have knight to f3. So Rubinstein is white, Capablanca is black, and he goes once again for the Tarrasch defense. c4, e6. So something standard for the Tarrasch. cd5, ed5, and once again black will probably be left with the isolated pawn in the center. Knight to c3 and knight to c6, and now g3. So a common one of the common themes in these kinds of openings, for example, if you're playing Catalan or if you're playing this line of Tarrasch, you can play g3, bishop to g2, go castle, and you have a really good stronghold in front of your king, and you have potential opportunities to strike in the center. So yeah, Rubinstein goes for this, and to reply, Capablanca plays bishop to e6. So just by looking at me, you can see that I'm not really satisfied with this move. This bishop now acts as a pawn, defending this pawn, and yeah, isn't really doing anything. Maybe you remember Capablanca already played this kind of move in a match against Marshall, and yeah, Marshall didn't really take advantage of that. But let's see what Rubinstein does. Bishop to g2, and now we have bishop to e7. Continue with the development, and we have castles. Rook to c8. So Capablanca knows that the c file will be eventually opened, even so white will take on c5, or he will take on d4, and that is why he puts the rook on c8. But the problem with this move, maybe it is too early, since like when you're playing cards, you don't want to show your hand that early in the game. You want to keep it maybe and then strike with a very strong card at one point in the game, you know, when it's the right time. Now I would probably play knight to f6 instead of rook to c8, go castle, and then see, after white decides to develop his pieces and see what he does, play rook to c8 or maybe something else. Yeah, so nothing really wrong with this move. I would say maybe maybe Capablanca was too fast on the trigger there. So d takes c5 and bishop takes c5, and now we have knight g5. So Marshall went to play bishop to g5 after knight to f6, and Rubinstein decides to play knight to g5 and attack this bishop. So moving the bishop would be admitting of the mistake. So Capablanca decides to play knight to f6, which is the best move. Any other move would just lead to a worse position for black. Let me just show you second best move. We have first e4, and after d takes e4 you have knight takes on e6, and if queen takes on d1, if queen takes on d1, you have like intermediate knight takes on g7, king f8, rook takes here, king g7, and now in this position, yeah, white is just better. This g5 knight to g5 is great because it's releasing this bishop. You can strike in the center really fast with e4. So yeah, a really good position for white right from the start of the game, and we have knight to f6. So now knight takes on e6 and f takes on e6. So Rubinstein is creating weaknesses in Capablanca's game already from the start and trying to work on it. Bishop to h3, attacking this pawn. You cannot push it because rook is on c8. So yeah, you can see why maybe that rook to c8 was a bit premature. Queen to e7 defending, and now bishop to g5, pinning the knight. So the idea behind this move is simple. Now there is a build-up on the d5 square, because the pawn cannot take, rook is here, the knight is pinned, the queen can be attacked, so black has to address it. I would play rook to d8, but Capablanca decided to go castle. And now we have bishop f6 and queen f6, and knight takes on d5. So taking into account all of these problems, yeah, Rubinstein decides to take on d5, and this is not a sacrifice because after pawn takes you have queen d5, and now king h8, and you have bishop to c8. So not taking the bishop, now bishop has to take on f2 or you will lose it. King to g2, and after you take the bishop you have taking of this bishop, and white is just an exchange up. So you don't want to take on d5. Instead of that, Capablanca played queen to h6, and you have king to g2. So defending the bishop, which was attacked, and now we have a rook to d8. Now maybe you can see that black, maybe you would think that black is now in a good position, that he managed to get out of all of this, because the knight is pinned, there aren't any good checks, and the queen is here, so what can white do? So Rubinstein, as I mentioned, a really strong player and a favorite in this game, decided to play queen to c1, the absolute best move. This is the only move that is actually good for white in this position, because it covers all threats. Yeah, he is attacking the bishop, he is attacking the queen, and this bishop still stays and eyes this e6 pawn. So let's go over the options. So if queen takes on c1, we have simple bishop to e6, king has to move, and after rook takes, you're attacking the bishop, and you have time to move the pieces back into the defense, and you stay with the 2 pawns up. So this is not good. If you, for example, take with the rook on d5 and defend the c5 bishop, you have queen takes on h6, g takes, bishop takes on e6 with check, king moves, and you take the rook. Now white is an exchange up. So again, not the best move, and instead all of that, Capablanca decided to take on d5, and now we have queen takes on c5. Okay, after all of this, white is a pawn up. Capablanca decides to go on the offensive and plays queen to d2. Queen b5, defending b2 and e2, and now knight to d4 with tempo. So queen to d3 in order to attack the queen, and queen has to take on d3, because if you take on b2, you have rook b1, and now black queen cannot longer defend this knight. So yeah, you have to take. E takes on d3, the queens are exchanged, and we are going towards the endgame, where the white is a pawn up. So a better position for white, and Capablanca really needs to find something in order to get back into the game. Rook from f to e8, yeah, covering this open e line, e file, and now bishop to g4. So you can see first queen c1 and now bishop to g4. Those are the moves which make a great player. So keeping an eye on e2 square, activating a bishop a little bit, and still keeping an eye on c8 square. So you don't want to let the rook to come on c8, and you don't want to let this rook to come to e2. Also, one advice that I can give you that you can see from this position, sometimes it's good to put the bishop in this line like close to the knight, because now the bishop is covering all of the squares where the knight can jump to and potentially come closer to the action. So yeah, and now Capablanca needs to think about the best move to improve, and he plays rook to d6. Now we have rook to e1, one pair of rook is exchanged, and rook to b6. Rubinstein decides to ditch this b2 pawn and goes for the d5 pawn. Rook b2 and rook d5. The knight is attacked, he has to defend it, and he plays knight to c6 to defend also the d8 square. And now once again Rubinstein finds the best moves in the position. Bishop to e6 check first, king f8 and rook to f5. You can see clearly by these two simple moves, Rubinstein moved the bishop from this side of the board, and now he is moving it to this side of the board. And why is that? Because now he is defending the a2 pawn, and also he wants to pick up these two pawns. King goes to e8, first check on f7, now king to d7 and bishop to c4. So first he wanted to bring the king to the 7th rank, because now the check is with tempo, and he is also defending a2 and d3 pawn at the same time. a6, rook to f7 check, king d6, and Rubinstein takes the first pawn. Now b5 with tempo and bishop to g8. You don't want to put it on b3 because a4 and a5 and a4 are with tempo. So now we have a5 and rook takes on h7, and now we have a4. h4 also Rubinstein starts to push on his side, and now we have b4. So now things are starting to become a little bit scary for white, because Capablanca is advancing these pawns, and he can potentially have a passed pawn on the queen side. So he wants to improve the position of the rook to h6 check, king c5, rook to h5 check, king to b6. King goes behind the knight, so there are no more checks. And now we have bishop to d5. Actually a mistake by Rubinstein in the endgame, because now Capablanca has a really nice move to play, which is rook to a2, but a really difficult move to find, because now after bishop takes on a2, b3 goes, and there is actually not a good way for this rook to come to the queen side and actually prevent these pawns to push to the queen. When bishop takes, a takes, yeah, you just play b2, b1, the knight is guarding b8, the king is guarding b7, and they work really well together. And this pawn is a problem for white, and this pawn is a problem for white. This square is also defended by the knight, so the rook cannot go on e5 and e1. So all things are covered, and yeah, it's a problem for white here. Black is actually winning this game. Also bishop to b1 doesn't work, a3 and a2 also problems for black. Actually now you would have to play something like bishop to c4 or rook to h6, and after rook to c2 it's really hard to play against two passed pawns that are really advanced. So yeah, white would have to play, Rubinstein would have to play really precise in order to win this game. So yeah, bishop to d5 was played as I've said, and now we have b3 by Capablanca, so Capablanca missed rook to a2. And now things are just easy for Rubinstein. A takes on b3, and now a3 you don't want to take, because then the rook is in the way of this pawn. And now we have bishop takes on c6. King cannot take on c6 because we have rook to a5, and now the rook is behind the pawn, and he will easily manage to win this game, because in the end you can even give up a rook and you have that many pawns on this side, and this is just winning. So yeah, Capablanca decided to take on b3 instead of that, and now we have a bishop to d5 attacking the rook. Capablanca pushes a2, so if bishop takes on b3 he pushes a1 and gets a queen, but a rook to h6 check, and in this position actually Capablanca resigned the game. And the reason is, if you play king c5 for example, you have rook to a6, once again you are behind the pawn. And if you play something like king to b5 or king to a5, you have bishop to c4, not taking the rook, bishop to c4, in order to, if the queen promotes, you have rook to a6 check, king has to move and you lose the queen. Also, if the rook moves somewhere, rook b5, you just have bishop a2, so that doesn't make sense. So okay, so this is pretty much it for this game. Capablanca didn't manage to win all the games in the all the games, didn't manage to go in the tournament without losing the game. I will just show you the final standings. So in the end, Capablanca won the tournament with 9.5 points. Rubinstein was right behind him without losing the game. So yeah, he's, as I said, a pretty strong and a stable player. But yeah, Capablanca managed to have 6 wins in the tournament. I've shown you 2 wins already, and one also notable win was against Nimzowitsch. So I'm just saying that because Nimzowitsch was, along with Bernstein, one of the louder guys when they were complaining that Capablanca wasn't like, it wasn't okay that he played in the tournament because he wasn't qualified properly. But yeah, Capablanca showed them in the end and won both of the games, so against both of the guys, and showed why he actually was supposed to be invited to this tournament. As we can see, Marshall was in 4th place, Tarrasch 5th, so yeah, once again, a really strong tournament. And yeah, as I've said, this is end of this chapter of Capablanca's life. Later we will continue with some other games, and this is pretty much it for this video. So I would like to thank you for watching it, and I will see you next time.